All right, guys. I hope you guys can hear me. Welcome to the stream, our first official NFL live stream to be exact. We did an NBA draft live stream. I think it was like 4 days ago, and actually went pretty well. But how you doing today, Jacob?
I'm good. Feeling a little sluggish, but I've been sort of watching football and making pies all day. So
I
it's
gotta respect that.
good to just sort of relax myself and focus solely on football, at least
Yeah,
for a little bit.
and this will be the last live stream before Thanksgiving. So happy Thanksgiving to anyone who is listening. It's absolutely crazy that that's coming up. There's actually some decent Thanksgiving games on Thanksgiving, but that is not what we're talking about today. Today we are discussing NFL Week 11, which saw some pretty insane action. But definitely want to start out this live stream talking about the absolutely devastating injury to Cincinnati quarterback Joe Burrow. If you guys saw the video, I feel sorry for you because it's pretty nasty if you actually see what happened to his knee. And actually, literally just a few minutes ago, Ian Rappaport did report that it is official. Joe Burrow has a torn ACL, and he's going to be out for at least 8 to 10 months because that's usually what ACLs take to recover from. But Joe Burrow, torn ACL, absolutely horrible. The Cincinnati Bengals season was already likely over, but now it's definitely officially over. Jacob, what are your thoughts?
It sucks, dude. Like anytime someone rips their ACL up to shreds, it's not good. He's gonna miss the rest of this season and a little bit of next season as well, considering the timetable of his return. Um, and once he got hurt, the Bengals offense just looked sluggish. Like obviously Joe Mixon was already hurt to begin with, so they didn't really have a rushing attack. Um, and then Burrow gets hurt, and Ryan Finley comes in. Obviously, no disrespect to Ryan Finley, but he is
He ain't
not
Joe
the first
Burrow.
overall pick. He's not the first overall pick. And I said um, earlier today on my Instagram story when the news broke that Joe Burrow was probably going to win AFC Rookie of the Year, Offensive Rookie of the Year. And obviously, that's not happening considering his untimely injury. Just looked sluggish. I mean, I feel like this was a game that Washington was going to win anyways. Um, but it just you hate to see someone as good as Joe Burrow, especially in his rookie season, go down with something like that.
I just feel so bad because I feel like this was not like when I saw it happen, I honestly wasn't shocked because as me and almost any NFL analyst could have told you that this was bound to happen with how poor that Cincinnati Bengals offensive line was because they are just not good. They don't protect them, and especially when they don't have Joe Mixon on the field, they ain't running the ball very much. So they know the defense knows that it's just the whole offense is going to run through Joe Burrow. So he was just going to be taking shots all game long, and unfortunately, one of those shots ended up costing him his rookie season. And like you said, he'd been playing really well. He just didn't have a ton of support. Not I don't like when people say he had no support. He definitely did have some support, but Joe Burrow was everything to that Cincinnati Bengals offense, and now with him and Joe Mixon gone, the Bengals season's over. And I would hesitate to say that he was the front runner for offensive rookie of the
He
year.
was no, he was definitely in the conversation for it.
He was
That's
definitely in the
that's the point that
conversation,
I
but
was
I
trying to
think
make.
I would. It's hard to be offensive rookie of the year when your team is I think 2-7. But obviously, if Joe Burrow was not their quarterback, he would the Cincinnati Bengals would be in the run for worst team in the NFL with the Jets. But yeah, the headline is Joe Burrow is out for the year. With this injury happening in week 11, I'm not sure he's going to be ready to start the season. What do you think?
No, yeah, that's my point. The timetable for an ACL tear is 8 to 10 months.
Exactly.
He's gonna miss. He's like if they want to be sure, like obviously Cincinnati should not rush his return because this is the guy that's going to be their quarterback for the next decade. And you don't want to rush something like an ACL tear. So yeah, I mean they're gonna if it's not Ryan Finley that stays as the quarterback next year, they're gonna find someone else to start the next couple weeks. Um, while Joe Burrow is resting up that knee in the last stretch of his recovery. and then he'll hop back in probably week 4, week 5.
Yeah, it's just sad. I mean, because like I probably wasn't the biggest Joe Burrow fan coming out of college. I definitely respected him for how incredible his senior season was at LSU, but he surpassed all my expectations. Even though the Cincinnati Bengals weren't that good of a team, he looked really good. He almost looked like a veteran at times. So really sad, news for Joe Burrow. But I do want to talk about other games, and one of the main games that I want to talk about for this live stream is the Ravens and the Titans. Let me get rid of that. Sorry, the Ravens and the Titans, and because absolutely crazy game, absolutely kind of a must-win game for both these teams. As you know, the Ravens were 6-3 in the AFC North, with the Steelers going undefeated and also winning again this week. And the Titans, who I think were also 6-3, and then in the division with the Colts, who are actually playing pretty well. So definitely a must-win game for both teams. And the game ends up going to overtime. Really cool. And then Derrick Henry does Derrick Henry things. And since he's just so big and everyone's so tired out there, he just bullies his way to the end zone and gets that walk-up running touchdown. Jacob, what are your thoughts about this game?
Um, in a rather disappointing day of football so far, obviously there's still games to be played and games to be finished. In a rather disappointing day of football, this was the game of the day, I think, for me. This was a really good sort of back and forth, old school sort of football game with rushing and air attacks coming from both teams. Um, Reading off my phone, Ryan Tannehill, 259 passing yards, 2 touchdowns, 1 interception. Lamar Jackson, 186 passing yards, 1 touchdown, 1 interception. And Derrick Henry and J.K. Dobbins having a really good game. Each of them having a rushing touchdown. Obviously, Derrick Henry sealing the game with his rushing touchdown. Added another 133 rushing yards, which is good news for me because I started him. Um, just a really good back and forth game. And with the way things currently sit in the AFC South, the Tennessee Titans now lead the division, with Indianapolis losing by 2 touchdowns to Green Bay. And Baltimore now slides down to third in the AFC North. North? Right?
For Baltimore?
Pittsburgh. Yeah, AFC
AFC
North,
North.
right?
AFC North, yeah.
Yeah, with Pittsburgh remaining undefeated, and the Browns beating the Eagles today. They slide to third, and dare I say, Josh, that their playoff hopes are in some hot water right now. What do you think?
Well, they're not in hot water. Let me explain. If the season were to end right now, the Ravens are not in the playoffs. Let me say it again. If the season were to end right now, the Ravens would not make the playoffs. Think about if you were to tell someone that coming into the season that, 11 or 12 weeks into the season, the Ravens aren't a playoff team. That's insane. I mean, they're obviously not a terrible football team, but they have massively underperformed in many areas. And given they've definitely lost a lot of close games, they just haven't looked that impressive to me. I mean, everyone's getting on Lamar and how he's just not been playing well. I don't really see it that way. I know I've been a little bit critical of him, but I more give credit to people kind of, obviously people in the offseason were studying Lamar's tape, trying to figure out how to beat him, and they definitely have done, or they definitely created lots of strategies to help them defeat Lamar, and it has worked in a lot of ways. And I mean, the narrative is starting to grow that Lamar loses these big and close games. I mean, they lost to Tennessee, who was a good team. They lost to the Pats in Foxborough on Sunday Night Football, and they lost to the Chiefs on Monday Night Football. They got destroyed by the Chiefs, and I can't. Oh, they lost to Pittsburgh in another big game. And obviously, in a different season, those games could have gone either way because they were super close. But the more and more a narrative keeps getting built, the more the narrative is going to stick later on. And I'm just worried that Lamar is never going to get past this narrative that because obviously Lamar is a super talented quarterback. No one's denying that, but you gotta be able to win one of these big games, Jacob.
Yeah, you can't like the Ravens offense has lacked the spark that they had last year. and maybe it's because of a lack of weapons. Who knows? Obviously, Des Bryant having a pretty good game, but he wasn't around last year, so they can't. Like, if anything, they're better because of Des Bryant. Like, Willie Snead had an okay game. Hollywood Brown had no catches for no yards today, and he's been
He 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 has been a
sort of
massive
missing all year.
he's been a massive bust in my opinion. Like I because even when he was coming into the draft. I didn't like hate him, but he never like blow me away, and I never thought of him as a number one receiver. I just didn't think that was his game. I thought he was a perfect number two receiver with blazing speed who could take the top off kind of like McCole Hardman does in Kansas City, but. He is clearly showing you that he cannot be a reliable number one receiver, and that is we can't because you can't blame all these losses on Lamar. You just can't. And and it goes to show, no matter how good you are as a quarterback, you need a consistent number one receiver. Look at all the great quarterbacks in the league this year. Every single one of them has a legit dominant number one wide receiver. And that is a big problem that Baltimore has right now.
Yeah, and I feel like if they're gonna find their number one wide receiver, obviously they can't um, draft that guy. I don't think that young superstar is going to fall in their lap in the draft this year, which means that they got to go out and get a wide receiver. And I feel like the number one wide receiver that's waiting for them is sitting in their division wearing Cincinnati Bengals colors. I feel like AJ Green might be a good fit for that offense.
I was very surprised to see that he did not find a new team during the NFL trade deadline. I was really shocked to see that, but it also goes to show you that that's why the Ravens went out and got Des Bryant, someone that hasn't played in the NFL for I think 3 years. Like they need receiver help, and I know personally that Mark Andrews, that obviously had a great season last year playing tight end, is not the same player that he was last year. And he had a good day today, but he has not been that same tight end than he was last year. So even though Lamar obviously has been playing as well as he was his MVP season, he does need help. You can't just look at it from Lamar's perspective. And I'm not trying to let Lamar off the hook because he's obviously not been he's not been amazing. And to be fair, the Ravens defense, they did give up 30 points today, but the Ravens defense has been playing pretty well. I mean, it doesn't you can't really see it from the scoreboard, but the Ravens defense, don't get me wrong, they have been playing well. So obviously there's a lot of blame to go around, but this is stuff that you would like to figure out earlier in the season. I mean, we're getting to the later half of the season, and I think it's going to be really hard for the Ravens to kind of figure out their problems, especially when they don't have a bye.
Yeah, it's gonna be interesting to see what happens. Obviously, with Mark Andrews, I'm pretty sure he led the team today in receiving yards. Even if he is this phenomenal pass catcher, you can't keep relying on tight ends to get you big plays unless your name is Tom Brady or Joe Flacco. Tom Brady, of course, having Gronk, and Joe Flacco, who just loves to check down to tight ends. You can't rely on tight ends to make big plays. You need to have wideouts to create space if you're going to throw to a tight end, maybe. But you need wideouts to have an offense,
Yeah,
especially in today's NFL.
you need to be more than just a run team who tries to beat your team slowly. You need to have multiple ways to beat you, and the Ravens just don't. Because if they it's the record shows and the analysis the analytics show, if you get the Ravens behind, they almost never come back. I mean, that's not a coincidence. They're built to get a lead and hold the lead and short and smallly extend that lead. They're not a team that's built to come behind. Kansas City is a team that can come behind. The Buccaneers can come behind. Seattle can come behind, not Baltimore. And that is a real problem as they go into the playoffs. But enough talk about Baltimore. I do want to talk about Tennessee because this is a team now that is, I think now they're 7-3.
They're
They're
7-3, and they've got the division lead.
they do. And that's a division, even though the Colts are up top, I do not believe the Colts will do anything with that.
I think the Titans hold a tiebreaker as well.
I think they do too.
No,
So
the
yeah.
Colts hold the tiebreaker.
Oh,
The
they do.
Colts the
That's
Colts
right.
held the tiebreaker because the Colts won last week.
But have they played? So they play each other again.
They play each
But
other again next week.
oh, okay. So that'd be definitely a game to watch. But going back to my point, there are some narratives around the Titans that I really want to try people, or I want people to hear, because a lot of these narratives that you think about when you think of the Titans, when I watch them, I don't see it at all. And the biggest one, in my opinion, is that the Titans are a nitty gritty, like hard, run built, tough team. I disagree with that. I honestly disagree with that because Derrick Henry, yeah, he puts up some great numbers. He is so inconsistent as a runner, it really bugs me because if you look at his stat line today, he had 28 carries, I think 137 yards and a tutty. Obviously, when you're looking at that stat line, you're thinking, "Oh, Derrick Henry had a great day." He really didn't. I know he got the walk-off touchdown, but there's so many times where he and his running game just gets stuffed for 2 or 3 yards, and it's not consistent at all. And it's not. I don't like when people say like Derrick Henry, the King Henry, who can stop King Henry. Actually, almost everybody, and he really just breaks one off. He breaks off a long touchdown run almost every game. So I don't like when people try to tell me the Titans are this hard nosed old school football team. Like that doesn't even scare me. I don't I This take is not great, but I hope you understand what I'm trying.
Yeah, no, I understand what you're coming from, and I'll tell you why I agree. Um, Obviously, you read Derrick Henry's stat line on the day: 28 carries, 133 yards, one touchdown on the day. Um, Now you read his stats entering overtime, and that becomes sort of 24-ish, 25 carries, 100 yards for no touchdowns. That like that basically
It's not
epitomizes Derrick
good.
Henry's
That's
day.
not a good
Like
running day.
he didn't really have a good day, and it's
No,
sugarcoated
he
because
did
of the big run
not.
that he had at the end of the game.
Exactly.
And even if you look past Derrick Henry, you say, oh, okay, Derrick Henry had a great day. So did Corey Davis, 5 receptions, 113 yards.
Well, yeah, and also, well, the other narrative I want people to kind of hear my take is I do not like AJ Brown as a receiver. I just don't. People kind of have the same perspective of him because he's obviously for most people know him from that selfie he does with DK Metcalf where he looks like the freaking Hulk. And I'm not trying to knock him. He's obviously an insane athlete, but this dude catches 4 balls a game and has 100 yards, and it's just like that can't be your number one receiver. Your number one receiver has to catch consistent balls for decent yardage, and that is not AJ Brown. So he cannot be your number one receiver. And
Yeah,
Ryan Tannehill was playing awesome to start the season, and he's kind of dipped a little bit, but he still looks great. He's definitely above average quarterback. But I'm tired of people trying to tell me that this Titans team, come playoff time, is just gonna, they're gonna bully you, they're gonna get after you, and this is especially the case. It's actually the biggest point of my take. The Titans defense needs to be talked about more because they are so bad. The Titans defense
yeah,
is honestly one of the worst in the league. They have no pass rush. Their secondary is below average, and their linebackers are okay. And I honestly can't remember a game where the Titans defense hasn't given up more than like 25 points. And I know they're playing the Ravens, and 24 points is not that bad. But come playoff time, the biggest thing your defense needs to be able to do is get to the quarterback and not allow big plays. And that's exactly what the Titans defense does. So I'm
yeah.
tired of everyone trying to say, that this Titans team led by Mike Vrabel is this tough old school team that's just going to wear you down because, frankly, that's not what they are.
Yeah. Yeah, and this Titans defense, if you look at the names, Malcolm Butler, Kevin Byard, Jadeveon Clowney, and Vic Beasley. They've also got
Clowney that
Rashawn
was
Evans.
injured, but
Yeah, but Rashawn Evans. These are big names that are supposed to perform, and it's been a pretty underwhelming defense that Tennessee has. And I think they're very much in terms of offense, I don't think they're sort of a ground pound, run you into the ground offense. I think Derrick Henry is a ground pound, run you into the ground running back, but I don't think that offense necessarily revolves around him. I think this is very much a share the wealth offense. I mean, you look at their top. We'll look at their top three pass catchers, and that's AJ Brown, Corey Davis, and their tight end Jonnu Smith. They each have 300 plus catching yards, and AJ Brown and Jonnu Smith each have 6 touchdowns. Corey Davis has 3. There doesn't really no one really stands out as a number one receiver out there in Tennessee, and I don't think one really needs to either because they all sort of share the wealth. And Ryan Tannehill does really good dispersing the ball to a lot of different people. So is AJ Brown a number one wide receiver? No. And I don't think he's going to be as long as he stays in Tennessee. Obviously, that might change if he goes somewhere else. But A, I don't think he does. And B, I don't think it happens. I don't think he transforms into this big wide receiver one character.
No,
But
I don't see it either.
at the same time, Tennessee doesn't really have a number one wide receiver. If anything, it's Corey Davis, because of
Maybe,
and it's only Corey Davis because of the experience that he's got. But even then, you could argue AJ Brown. You could even argue Jonnu Smith at this point, who's having a pretty good year even as a tight end.
I just
So
it's just hard for me because everyone wants to put the spotlight on Derrick Henry and Mike Vrabel, and I think the spotlight kind of needs to go someplace else, and I think it needs to go in two places. One, I think it needs to go more on Ryan Tannehill's shoulders, who has shown once he came off the Dolphins that he's a real quarterback in this league. And also, I think the spotlight needs to go more on the holes they have as a team, that they don't have a number one wide receiver. They don't have a good pass rusher. And yeah, the Titans are 7-3, but they're not an impressive 7-3 to me. Also, I do want to say just really quickly, I have like NFL game day like to my left of me, and I think Adam Thielen just made catch of the year. Just saying,
did he? I'll have to watch it.
it's ridiculous, and I'm very thankful because it was
Catch of the year over DeAndre Hopkins last week.
that okay. That's actually a really interesting conversation because obviously that was a Hail Mary, and that's a little bit more, in my opinion, a little bit more luck than skill. Adam Thielen just made one of the. I'll just describe it. Adam Thielen, I have him in a fantasy. Thank you. He just made a one hand catch over the defender in the end zone. Just go watch it. It's awesome.
Oh yeah, I'll
Um,
go look at it.
okay, but yeah, just want to make that clear. But before you actually do that, Jacob, I do want to get into our. If you're unfamiliar with our channel, every Sunday we do a minute of mania, where basically we try to break down all of kind of the lower level games that weren't necessarily the spotlight games of the week, and we try to break them down in a minute because, in my opinion at least, a lot of these games get over talked about, and they really don't need to be talked about that much. In my opinion, they only need to be broken down in 1 minute to really know what happened. So that is what we do in this Minute Mania. I'm just going to pull up the timer real quick because obviously Minute Mania, only 1 minute. But I'll let Jacob actually look at that touchdown if he wants real quick.
I can't find it on YouTube.
It just happened. It
I'll
literally
hunt
just
it down and
happened.
we'll text about it eventually.
Okay, cool. But Jacob, if you're ready, then I'm ready.
Yeah, let's go.
Okay, just let me pull up the timer real quick. All right, here we go. Let me just take this Ravens thing off the board here. All right, 3, 2, 1, go. All right, first game I want to talk about is the Falcons and the Saints. Saints making the surprise move and starting Taysom Hill quarterback, and he performed okay, but he didn't do great. I think he ran for another touchdown, even though he was playing quarterback. And Falcons do Falcons things; they just don't look very good. Your thoughts on the game?
I'm not shocked that they went with Taysom Hill, the guy that's been in the franchise for a couple years, and picked him over Jameis Winston. And honestly, I'm glad they went with Taysom Hill. He rushed for 51 yards and 2 touchdowns, and threw for another 233. Just a really impressive game by Taysom Hill, sort of the Swiss Army knife offensive guy that they've got in New Orleans. And Atlanta, where do you go from here? I guess the positive is the only way you can go is up. But
It's
At the
not. It
same
doesn't look
time,
pretty. It doesn't look
yeah, I mean,
pretty.
it doesn't look good. Matt Ryan throws for 2 picks,
Why
and
won't
the
they just move
offense
off
just
Matt
looked
Ryan? Why can't they just
offense.
accept that Matt Ryan is just washed? I don't understand it.
Yeah, like the offense just it looks bland in Atlanta,
To
and
be fair, I saw who they were starting at running back today, and oh god, I can't. Of course, it was the. I think it's. Oh, they started Bilal Powell. That was their running back today. So whenever you're starting Bilal Powell, you ain't having no chance of having a running game. So
well, another
obviously,
thing, if you start Bilal Powell and Todd Gurley still leads you in rushing yards, that's another thing.
that's yeah. So definitely not exciting to see there. But another game that we kind of talked about just briefly was Bengals and Washington. Obviously, the headline is Joe Burrow's knee injury, but just want to talk about the game really quickly. As soon as Joe Burrow comes out of the game, Bengals are just finished basically. Ryan Finley doesn't do much, and Alex Smith gets another victory in the NFL, which is a really good sight to see.
Yeah, I mean, we talked a lot about Cincinnati, so I'm going to talk about Washington a little bit. Their defense looked really good in the second half. Shows why they are a top 10 defense in terms of fantasy. Um, Forced fumble on Joe Burrow by Chase Young, who looks really good in his rookie year. Alex Smith doesn't really have a spectacular day, not a whole lot of flash, but he gets the job done. Antonio Gibson rushes for another touchdown. Just a well-oiled machine in Washington, and they took advantage of a handicapped Cincinnati Bengals offense that just looked bland.
Yeah,
Um,
nothing. Yeah, nothing really to talk about here. Definitely two teams that are not going to matter in a few weeks because obviously the playoffs are coming up. Another game I want to talk about is the Pittsburgh Steelers and the Jacksonville Jaguars. The Steelers are still the lone undefeated team in the National Football League. Took a little bit for them to kind of pull away from Jacksonville, but Jacksonville, kind of remembered that they are 1-8 and are trying to tank for Trevor Lawrence most likely. So kind of a blowout here, but definitely want to talk about since it's the only lone undefeated team in the league.
yeah, I mean, Pittsburgh's defense is top five, and I think no one can dispute that after this game. Jake Luton throws for 4 interceptions. Just an abysmal performance.
Some of those were not his fault.
Had the lead briefly, but then it was the carpet was slow, like not slowly, but quickly
Yeah,
swept out from under them right away by the Steelers, who gained traction and just took off. No
yeah,
stopping them.
nothing. Yeah, I mean, yeah, Jake Luton definitely didn't have his best day, but he has actually impressed me in moments. I definitely like his arm. There's nothing really to learn from Pittsburgh in his performance. I mean, they beat a really bad opponent by like 24 points. They just do it kind of slowly, and no one really has a great day. So nothing really to learn about Pittsburgh, but Jacksonville obviously are not good. But I think sneakily, I think Jake Luton could land himself a backup quarterback role and on a different team if he keeps playing the way he does. But the other game I want to talk about is the Patriots. They played the Texans today. The Texans actually get the victory there. A little bit of surprise there. They had not looked good really all year. But Deshaun Watson goes off. I think he throws for 3 touchdowns. He also runs for a touchdown. The Houston defense makes kind of like a last minute stand, stops Cam Newton in the Patriots offense. Just when we thought the Patriots offense, kind of the Patriots team in general was kind of turning a corner, they go to Houston and lose. What do you think of that?
Deshaun Watson with 344 passing yards and 2 passing touchdowns, 36 rushing yards and 1 touchdown. Where the hell has he been all year? Like honestly, where has this Deshaun Watson been?
Do not
Um,
insult my boy Deshaun Watson.
no, but like where has this Deshaun Watson been? Like
I'll tell you where he's been. He's been under the he has been a victim to the Houston Texans organization. And also talk about someone who doesn't have weapons, a bad O-line, no real running game, and talk about trading away your best receiver when he didn't even ask to. So don't you ever call my boy Deshaun.
yeah, well, I mean that all that, and he hangs 20, probably 21 single handedly on the Patriots. Yeah, I mean, where has this guy been? If you've seen him, uh, let Houston know because they're missing their
Stop, stop,
quarterback.
stop, stop. I can't believe it. This is such a terrible take. Deshaun Watson is not Houston's problems. Let me make that very clear. Houston's problem was Bill O'Brien.
Houston's problem is going to take years to be reversed. I understand that point,
I don't think it'll
but
take
I
that long, but
mean,
it'll definitely take a few years.
it'll take a long time.
Nah,
But
Deshaun
obviously,
Watson's too good.
Deshaun Watson shows up. I'm not saying that he's not a phenomenal quarterback, but he's been sort of non-existent. Like he's been sort of under the radar. I feel like
He's
this
been the
season.
victim of a bad team. Come on, man. All
No,
right.
I understand that, but like, okay, yes, I understand he's on the Houston Texans, and the Houston Texans suck, and that's because of butt chin Bill O'Brien, who is gone, thank God.
Thank
But
God.
I feel, yeah, and I feel like Deshaun Watson, outside of a couple games, like you could name a handful of games where he sort of popped off, this game included, but like, and obviously he's got no weapons to throw to, but like, where has he
I
been? And I don't
I
mean that
can yeah.
disrespectfully, but like,
I no 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 no. I can understand your take because well, we're gonna talk about in a few seconds the Eagles and Browns game, but we get on people like Carson Wentz, and we get on a couple of our quarterbacks who we say should be performing even though they don't have a ton of weapons, and Deshaun Watson never really enters that conversation. So I can see that take, but I also would like to point out that Deshaun Watson has had almost the worst run of support in the NFL since he
yeah,
entered
he's
the
he's
league.
been he's been dealt a
Not
phenomenally poor hand.
not necessarily in terms of talent, but in terms of coaching. And well, obviously, no one. See, I think Sam Darnold definitely wins that argument. But I'm just saying, Deshaun Watson has had so little maturity and so little, availability to develop because he landed in the Houston Texans organization. So I'd like to just calm that down just a little bit. I'm not saying he has been perfect. He has not. He definitely has stuff he's got to work on. But to my point, who in the Texans organization is there, to try to help him? And my answer is nobody. But that is our
Right.
minute of mania. They're definitely not the most exciting week in the NFL, but I definitely think this next game has many storylines that we could talk about, and that is of course the Cleveland Browns and the Philadelphia Eagles. And I got to watch this game almost entirely because it was the game available in my area, so I could tell you pretty much anything. I could tell you almost anything that happened in this game. And the thing I most pointed out while watching this game is that both these teams' quarterbacks are not looked upon highly because both coaches, are trying to take the ball out of these quarterbacks' hands. I'm telling you, heading into the fourth quarter, I think for the Eagles, I don't think Carson Wentz threw the ball more than 15 times. And even though he only thrown the ball less than like 15 times, he still threw a pick six, and he did not look good. And yet again, we are here talking about the Eagles and how poorly Carson Wentz has performed.
Yeah, like, obviously Carson Wentz has to be the guy in Philly for a couple years because the alternative, either is going to come in this year's draft or it's not going to come for a
But
little
does he
bit.
have to be? Like, come on.
I
Like,
feel like I feel like the alternative is, like, okay, Doug Peterson, I feel like, is a win now coach. I don't think he is
but
with
he's also part
Philly
of
to
the
rebuild.
problem. He's
Right.
been
No,
almost
and
as much as the problem as
if
Carson Wentz
Philly
has
wants
been.
to pull the plug and say, okay, we're not going to be a contender anymore, we're going to try and rebuild this team, Doug Peterson's got to be the first one out the door because Doug Peterson is a win now coach. He's not meant to coach a rebuilding team. And I feel like he's in sort of an uncomfortable situation with the Eagles now sitting at 3-6-1. They're in sort of a weird spot because obviously they're at the top of the division, in the NFC least. Um, but like, the gap, and I thought about this more today because of how poorly the NFC East has been. The gap between the team that wins the division and goes to the playoffs, and second place is going to be so many draft picks. Like you got to believe because well, let's think about this. The winner of the division is not going to have a wild card seeding. They're gonna have a division winner seeding, which is going to be probably, and they're going to be the worst division leader. So it's probably going to be around 15 or 16, I would say. And then second place is probably going to get fifth.
It's a crapshoot to just say the least. But my thing is, if you listen to our last week, NFL recap, I talked about how I we were talking about Carson Wentz and Jared Goff, and what would happen if Carson Wentz had gone to the Rams and Jared Goff to the Eagles. And I sat here and told everyone that if Carson Wentz went to the Rams, he would be a top 10 quarterback, and a lot of these problems that he's having in Philadelphia would not be happening with the Rams. I'm here to tell everyone I am so sorry. And because that take within 1 week, I can look back and just I was wrong. You got like doing what we do. We got to admit when we're wrong. Carson Wentz, I get it. Doug Peterson isn't helping. His O line sucks, and he actually has more weapons than you might think. Carson Wentz, I watch him play. He's garbage. He's
Yeah, to say that he sucks.
garbage. He's garbage.
I
I like there.
literally just
Wait,
stop beating around the
hold
bush.
on.
He
Let
sucks.
me
He's
let
not
me
a good quarterback. He's
let me
not
finish let me
worth
finish my
the
take. Let me
second
finish my
overall pick
take.
that he was taken with.
No, he for the number two overall pick. It's I would hesitate to say he's a bust yet. I don't want to overreact, but I watch him and there are plays he makes when there is no one left to blame but Carson Wentz. Like there's not a problem on the O line. It's not that his receivers suck or that Doug Pearson calls a terrible play. It's Carson Wentz is mentally just gone. Like he's so like it's actually partly people like us because we obviously notice we get on Carson when he doesn't play well. And I feel like he's someone who has let media and outside noise completely ruin his game because I feel like every time I watch him play, he's scared that he's going to make a mistake. It's not like this little like killer mentality, go win mentality. It's just I don't want to mess up. I don't want to mess up. And he makes plays like that pick six play, and it just looks so defeated. And it just like he has like a receiver, and there's literally no one by him, and he just misses the throw. Or when he takes that safety, when they show the replay, there is two receivers that are wide open that he doesn't even see, and he just holds the ball too long. It's just like you need to be past this stage if you're Carson Wentz. You've been in the league for too long and had too much success to fall back to these issues that backup quarterbacks I don't even think would have.
Philadelphia's got a decision to make at the end of this year. Um, and I think that decision depends on where they fall in the draft this year. They need to either get rid of Doug Peterson and admit that they're going to rebuild and try and build around Carson Wentz and try their best to sculpt him into the quarterback that they wanted him to be, or they keep Doug Peterson and say that they're going to contend, and they say that they're not going to do it with Carson Wentz, and they ditch him, and they find their quarterback, maybe a Mac Jones or a Kyle Trask or Justin Fields or someone in the draft that Doug Peterson can mold into his win now quarterback that he wants. They need to make a decision between those two by the end of this coming off season.
See, I can see where your take is coming from. I just don't personally agree because you kind of explained it yourself that the Eagles are in such a terrible spot that they can't just they're like even though how bad their team has performed on virtually all levels, they're still winning the division at this point. Like when we're recording this, and like you said, even if they are as bad as they are, they're not getting a top 10 pick if the season were to end today. So, and then obviously, Trevor Lawrence and Justin Fields are going to be the top two quarterbacks who head into this draft, and I would be astounded if they were to get any of them. And then the quarterbacks besides, Trevor Lawrence and Justin Fields, I wouldn't put my franchise on their shoulders, just to be honest. So I don't think the draft this year is the right move. But I think you're absolutely right in terms of getting rid of Doug Peterson almost this season, to be honest, because I think it was actually very interesting because watching this game, there's been a lot. Just to talk about the Browns really quickly, there's been a lot of talk about because obviously Baker Mayfield is another quarterback who is severely underperformed at times, and quickly people have realized actually the best recipe for success for that Browns offense is to actually take the ball out of Baker Mayfield's hands and play heavily in the play action game and let their offense flow through Kareem Hunt and Nick Chubb. And that is especially what they've been doing these past few weeks. And I'm watching the game and I think to myself, that's the same recipe that the Eagles should follow because they got a Miles Sanders who is severely underrated in this league. And they also got Boston Scott, who, isn't, I'm not saying he's a great running back, but he's a decent running back. I like watching him play. They need to get Carson Wentz outside of the pocket way more because, in theory, if they were to run the offense properly, they could run the Browns offense better than the Browns run their own offense because Baker Mayfield ain't athletic, let me tell you. And
No, he's not.
Carson Wentz is actually very athletic and actually is a better, he's better at making throws on the run than Baker Mayfield is. So the Eagles need to just scrap their whole offensive plan, and I think they just need to they need to transform Carson Wentz into what the Browns are doing with Baker Mayfield and their offense right now.
Yeah, I mean, it makes sense. Obviously, Miles Sanders and Boston Scott are not Nick Chubb and Kareem Hunt. I think if they're going to try and sculpt their offense to try and mimic Cleveland, they need at least one upgrade at running back. I feel like this offense is running through Carson Wentz too much, and I think that's the reason this year that they're 3-6-1. Like because this offense is and this offensive playbook is running through Carson Wentz, and he's not the guy that should run the entire offense. Like obviously rushing needs to have some sort of payload, and 66 yards is not going to do that, which is what Miles Sanders had today.
But my point is that he should be getting the ball way more. They showed a stat during the
Right? No,
game
that's no.
that
You're 100% right.
Miles Sanders is second in the league when it comes to yards per carry. He's at 5 yards per carry, and you're giving Miles Sanders the ball like 15 carries a game, barely. That is not acceptable given what the current quarterback status is.
Yeah, it's a mess, and the reality is, with the team that Philadelphia has, this should be a runaway with the division. They should probably have 5 wins against the division. They should have 2
They
against
should have
Washington,
way more than that.
2 against. Well, okay, against the division they should have 5 wins. They should have 2 against Washington, 2 against New York, and 1 against Dallas. They split against Dallas, but they sweep New York and they sweep Washington. The reality is they've already lost to Washington, and the way I see it, Week 17, they're going to do it again. They split against New York, and I think they're going to split against Dallas in Week 16. And then the rest of their schedule is Seahawks, Packers, Saints, Cardinals. That's 4 more losses, I think. I don't think they win any of those games. And, like,
you certainly can't bet. You can't bet for them. Like I would be
right.
surprised if anyone is betting for the Eagles.
Yeah, and
In
it's
the upcoming
just, like,
weeks.
and I understand that they're a division rival, but it's just so frustrating to see a team that went. What did they even go last year? Did they go 9-7 last year?
I think they went 7-9.
They
It's
went
either
7 and
nine.
9. A
Yeah,
team that won the division, they won the division last year. A team that won the division last year and handily, might I add, um, doing so poorly, and nothing changed. Like they didn't scrap their team and decide to rebuild. They've got relatively the same squad that they did last time, and it's just like I understand that they're a division rival, and I'm supposed to be like reveling in their defeat, but
for
my team's not doing much better, so I think I'm allowed to
for
do
all
this.
who don't know,
Um,
Jacob is a massive Giants fan.
like everyone's got 3 wins in the NFC East, my team included. So I feel like I'm allowed to do this, and I'm supposed to. I'm not supposed to, but I'm allowed to sympathize with another team who sucks. Like, it's just frustrating, man. Like, and they're not going to do well for the rest of the season either, considering their opponents. Um, yeah, I mean, obviously, I think they need to either they need to make a decision. They need to either try to win now with Doug Peterson, or they rebuild with Carson Wentz and sort of sculpt him into that guy. And maybe they already drafted their guy. Maybe Jalen Hurts is their guy. Who knows?
That's that's where I would lean if I were, running the Eagles. Like, obviously, I don't think you drafted Jalen Hurts to succumb to, Carson Wentz, but you don't draft Jalen Hurts in the second round just to have him be, the Taysom Hill for your offense. That's not why you drafted Jalen Hurts. Maybe it is, and it's stupid if it is, but that's just not the way I see it. What
I
I what
think that
I
I'll stop you right there. I think that was their goal when they drafted Jalen Hurts. Was they looked at the Saints and they said, okay, they've got this good quarterback in Drew Brees, and then they've got this sort of Swiss Army knife in Taysom Hill that can throw the ball and run the ball and do this and do that and whatever. And we've got this quarterback in Carson Wentz, who we believe is a franchise quarterback and we think can be Drew Brees if he learns and evolves under Doug Peterson, who we think is a great coach, who led us to a Super Bowl, who won us a Super Bowl. And we're going to draft this sort of Swiss Army knife offensive piece that can run the ball and throw the ball and do this and do that. Like, obviously, I think they drafted him to be a Taysom Hill, but at this point, you have to look at your offense and say, okay, Carson Wentz is not the guy. And now we look at this Jalen Hurts guy and we say, hey, he was pretty good in college. Maybe we give him a shot. Maybe, you know what? Our schedule sucks. Like, we don't really have a chance. I feel like I think we're gonna lose 4 straight against this team, this team, this team, and this team. Let's let Jalen Hurts start and see what
I, ju-
happens.
I
What do we
just
have
feel
to
like
lose?
I just feel like it's just I feel like it's just the right move to put Jalen Hurts in at quarterback because Carson Wentz needs to be sent a message that your job is on the line. I honestly don't care how good you played back in 2017. I mean, obviously you've dealt with injuries, but this is just not okay. Like, I know you're probably like, even judging like how I talked about how he just looks defeated basically anytime he makes a poor play. He might not be the best guy to, kind of motivate, by benching him, but I honestly don't care at this point. His performance is unacceptable for like you said, for how bad the NFC East is. This shouldn't even be a discussion. Like, the Eagles should be running away with this division, and it shouldn't be close. And Carson Wentz, even though he's had, the lack of help, the it's a massive part of why the Eagles are not, performing to the potential. And I think Jalen Hurts he might not be the answer, but I think it might be
He's
the
one of
answer
them.
for this moment.
I mean, he might not be the guy, but the alternatives right now they don't look super flashy.
They just they're just not good in any way, shape, or form. I do want to talk about the Browns. We've been talking about the Eagles for way too long, so I
No, that's
do want
fair.
to
I'm
talk
gonna
about.
blow a blood vessel if we keep talking
Yeah,
about Carson Wentz.
I might not do that, but I definitely am not feeling good about myself. I do want to talk about the Browns just for a quick moment because now they're 7-3. They're actually second in the NFC North ahead of the Baltimore Ravens. Who would have thunk that? But they still, I think, are 3 games behind Pittsburgh because they're just undefeated. But even at 7-3, if the Browns and the Ravens were to play right now, I would take the Ravens to win by at least 10 points. I'm not even joking. Like, this Brown team is, I think, easily one of the most unimpressive 7-3 teams I think we've ever seen.
Yeah, I mean them, and we talked about the Titans also being 7-3, and not being super impressive. Um, yeah, I mean nothing about this team really screams playoff ready or Super Bowl contender or something like that. Even though their record is 7-3, um, obviously they're a mess of a team receiving wise. Like, obviously Jarvis Landry, and Odell Beckham Jr., who I believe is hurt. Um, so we won't even talk about OBJ.
Yeah, he tore his
But
ACL.
yeah, so he's out for the year. But even if he was on this team, I don't think it would make that much of a difference. I think the Browns' goal, and I'm going to look past the playoffs, I'm going to look at the draft. I think they go wideout in the first round. What do you think?
Well, oh man, you say the Browns go wide out first round this coming draft.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think their defense is an issue. Well, okay, let me rephrase. Their defense is not an issue. Their defense is monstrous and young. They have a young defense, and
I'm not I'm not
I
I'm
think
not su- eh. I'm not
no,
like I'm
I
not I'm
think
not
they.
like blown out of the water by them, but I definitely I get what you're saying. Miles
I
Garrett is a
am. I'm
beast.
sold on this defense. They
Okay,
look
that's
really
fair.
good and they look young. Miles Garrett is phenomenal and is having a breakout year and is probably going to win Defensive Player of the Year on the AFC side.
He looks like a true
Obviously,
number
he's
one overall pick.
yeah, no, he's definitely taking shape to be that number one guy. I'm sold on this Browns defense. I don't think they are an issue that need to be addressed with the first round. Um, but yeah, I think the Browns go wide out. Maybe they move on from OBJ and realize that he is a locker room diva, similar to Antonio Brown, who sort of demanded the spotlight and whined when he didn't get it. At least that was the case when he was in New York. Um, yeah, I think they go wide out. Maybe they get a wide receiver three to build with, and once they've had fun with their shiny toy night shot their shiny toys named Jarvis Landry and OBJ. They go to that guy that they drafted in the first round of 2021. I don't know. What do you think? Maybe I'm
Well,
crazy. Who knows?
well, here's my take. I understand your take about they go wide out first round. I think it's a very similar situation to the Rams, and here's why. I talked about this in the last recap this past week. The Rams, they're both the Rams and the Browns have to come to terms that this is not their quarterback of the future for both teams. Jared Goff, he's not terrible, but he's not great. And if your quarterback is not great, then he can't be your quarterback you can't be your franchise quarterback. Same thing goes for Baker Mayfield. For being the number one overall pick and placed as your franchise quarterback, he has massively underperformed and he has been massively overhyped since his senior season at Oklahoma. And until the Browns accept that that's the case, they're not a threat in any way, shape, or form when it comes playoff time. Now, I understand that the defense is, I think it's good and not great. You think it's great, and I'm not going to dispute that. I don't have the stats in front of me. But the Brown, let me also say this: OBJ has never worked, and I will be generally astonished if they don't move on from him this upcoming off season because OBJ I think has been massively overhyped since his obviously ridiculous one hand catch. He's still a great receiver, don't get me wrong, but there's
He's
just
super talented, but he demands the spotlight so much,
yeah,
and
I
that's the
understand
problem.
that, but I also think there's just some quarterback wide receiver combos that just don't work, and that's okay. And Baker Mayfield and OBJ, it's just the combination that just it just doesn't work, and it's okay. So that's another reason why they could go wide out, but you know, I'm not sure how good the quarterback class is, this following year, but they have to accept that Baker Mayfield's not the guy, and if they realize that, I could see him going for a first round quarterback within the next 3 years. That's honestly my opinion.
It makes sense. Okay. You are talking to a New York Giants fan who can tell you firsthand that you do not need a phenomenal quarterback to win 2 Super Bowls.
Well, let me say this. It's 2020 and Eli Manning got extremely lucky. So that's my take on that take. And I would also say that there are so many other factors and even if you go look back at, previous Super Bowls, even just recently, almost every Super Bowl winning team has an elite quarterback.
Right. Now, okay, with me saying that you don't need a phenomenal quarterback to win 2 Super Bowls, that's not me saying that the Browns should stick with Baker Mayfield or the Rams should stick with Jared Goff. I feel like Baker Mayfield is not the number one pressing issue in Cleveland right now, and it doesn't need to be taken care of as of right now. I think
See,
in the future, if you're sick of him and you want a quarterback, fine. But right now, I'm talking about this upcoming draft. I don't think quarterback is the issue.
that's your take. Can't get mad at the take. I think this is well. I'm a spoiled fan because I have the number one quarterback on my team,
Right, and
and
you just won a Super Bowl with a 24-year-old.
well, exactly, it feels amazing. But the NFL in the previous years, no one can dispute this, has absolutely become an offensive minded quarterback driven league, and
No, that's very true.
it goes to show, and I said this last week, if your team, in my opinion, does not have a top 10 quarterback, like honestly, don't care about how good you do in the regular season. You're not a threat come playoff time because playoff time playoff time in the NFL is a whole other animal. It is so different from the regular season. It's not even close. And sorry, Jacob, I think you've been kind of out of the loop for a while now since you're a Giants fan. Just had to throw that quick dig. Sorry,
It's
but
okay.
my
We
point,
drafted Daniel Jones.
who I actually think is okay, but
Yeah,
my
he's not
point
bad.
is, my point is, Baker Mayfield has shown you unlike a Deshaun Watson and unlike a Daniel Jones, for instance, Baker Mayfield has been given almost anything he wants except for having a stable offensive coordinator and head coach, which obviously is not great. But my point,
And maybe an O-line,
he
but yeah.
well, yeah. And so, but he's been given that OBJ. He's been given that Jarvis Landry. He's been given Kareem Hunt. He's been given Nick Chubb, and he's been given a first round left tackle who was elite. So Baker Mayfield has had all this, toys around him, and he doesn't have much to show for it. I know they're 7-3. I know, but it is not because of Baker Mayfield. It's not. And people who are Cleveland fans and people who are work for the Cleveland organization have to come to terms with that. It's just not. It's just not. If you want to win a Super Bowl, Baker Mayfield cannot be your quarterback. That's essentially my take.
Yeah, no, I mean, everything you're saying makes sense. Baker Mayfield is not the elite quarterback that you need to win a Super Bowl.
Well, Iwari, I have one more. I have one more question for you.
Sure.
Do you think? Okay, let me ask you this. In the AFC specifically, is Baker Mayfield a top five quarterback?
In the AFC,
Yes.
let me look at who is in the AFC
Okay,
because
let
that's
me
not
just
my
name this.
conference.
Patrick Mahomes. There's Patrick Mahomes. There's Lamar Jackson.
Yeah, Patrick Mahomes, Lamar Jackson. I'm looking at the
Tua.
teams.
Tua.
I would say Josh Allen, Tua Tagovailoa, Ben Roethlisberger,
Yeah, we can just name.
Ryan Tannehill. I would argue because he went
I
deep, and he's in a new scheme.
Joe Burrow when he's not injured.
Yeah, Joe Burrow. If you're going to say Joe Burrow, you have to say Justin Herbert. Um,
Or Cam Newton. Like we literally just named over five guys that we would prefer rather than Baker Mayfield. That
yeah,
is a problem.
I feel like we named at least 9 of those quarterbacks in the top 10 because I feel like number 10 is Baker Mayfield, and
And I'm
he's a
telling you,
distant 10.
if you want to win a Super Bowl, you can't have the 10th ranked quarterback in your own conference.
Right.
Let alone your division, because
Yeah,
AFC North, Lamar
out of
Jackson,
16 teams,
Big
it
Ben,
can't be number
and Joe
10.
Burrow, Baker Mayfield is arguably the worst quarterback in his own division. Like, come on.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
yeah,
I mean,
that's my take.
yeah,
The
we could
Browns
talk
and
for
the
hours and hours about Philly and Cleveland, sort of by themselves. We could make a podcast about Philly
yeah,
and a podcast about Cleveland.
we could call it hating on Browns and Eagles, and we probably get a decent amount of
We could call
followers.
it yelling at Carson and Baker.
Yep. But yeah, so that's my take on the Browns and kind of the game in general. The final thing I kind of want to talk about for this live stream is the upcoming Sunday night game, which is the Chiefs and Raiders for anyone who doesn't know. And I would really like to talk about this game because I can tell you this for sure. We have not talked Chiefs for quite some time in for HQI Sports. And I'm a Chiefs fan, and I really try to keep my
Okay,
bias.
how about this? Would you like me to intro this and then let you have the floor?
Sure, yeah, I'll
Since
let you do that.
you're the resident Chiefs fan.
Go ahead.
So the Sunday night football game is obviously Chiefs Raiders. The storyline going into this is that the Raiders currently hold the tiebreaker. They beat Kansas City on the road in, I don't want to say convincing fashion. It was a relatively good game. It was a tight game, but Las Vegas won that game. And you know, obviously to the credit of the weapons that they have, Henry Ruggs, their um, the
Darren Waller, can you hear me?
with Darren Waller, Hunter Renfrow, Nelson Aguilar, having 300 plus receiving yards, um, and then obviously on the other side of the ball, Patrick Mahomes having an MVP season, Clyde Edwards-Helaire tearing up the rushing offense, and then the receiving core of Tyreek Hill, Nicole Hartman, Travis Kelsey, what's his name? Travis Kelsey, and then at all, sort of whoever I missed, and obviously uh, Josh will fill you in. Um, can they do it against Las Vegas on the road? And I feel like they have to because if they don't, it's going to put them in a weird position where they are 8-2 with both of those losses coming against Vegas, and it begs the question: is Las Vegas sort of Patrick Mahomes' kryptonite, similar to how the Giants were Brady's kryptonite come Super Bowl time? Obviously, it's an outlandish comparison, and I'm only saying it because I'm a Giants fan. But A, I can't really think of a bigger David and Goliath story in the NFL in terms of modern era. And B, like nothing is more glaring than your record being 8-2 and your only two losses coming against one team. Um, and with that,
Yeah,
I'm going to turn it to the resident Chiefs fan. Yeah, take it away.
yeah. First of all, I would like to say sorry for that stream because like halfway into that the like connection cut off for like half a second. So
Oh, did it? Cool.
I
I was on a tear.
I
Hopefully you heard me.
yeah, I'm hoping it's go. It says it's good now, so I'm hoping it's still going good. But I heard almost everything you said, so there's no worry there. Like you said, the Raiders beat us week 5. It's our only loss of the season, and I wouldn't say it was convincingly, but I'll definitely
I wouldn't
say it
say it
was.
either, but it was a close game. Vegas came out on top. Correct me if I'm wrong. It went into overtime.
No.
No, it didn't. But it was close.
Well,
Won by
yeah,
8. You lost by 8.
yeah. So yeah, let me finish.
Yeah, good.
The Raiders beat us not convincingly, I would say, but surprisingly, because This is a so-called rivalry that has not been much of a rivalry the past, I say, like 7 years almost, because the Raiders have beat us, I think, twice in maybe the last like 8 years or something. It's something the Chiefs have owned this so-called rivalry in recent years. But obviously, this past in week 5, the Raiders got the victory, and I give them full credit. They beat us. This was not a game where like the Chiefs, got screwed on some calls or something, and the Raiders went on to win. That's not what happened. They took event. They made some really big plays. They exposed our secondary for pretty much the only time this season. And when we needed to stop the run, the Chiefs did what they did, and they didn't stop the run. So it wasn't anything shocking to me. So, but to answer your question, am I worried about tonight? Hell no, hell no. Because here's why. The worst time to face the Chiefs is when they have a motive, and also the worst time to face the Chiefs is when they're coming off a bye. And those two things are happening tonight. The Chiefs had a bye week 10, and now they obviously play week 11. And then the whole thing with the victory lap around the stadium thing, which I'm sure anyone who follows the NFL has heard about, that was known about literally the moment the game was over, and no one cared. No one cared in the Chiefs community. But as the mainstream media does so effectively, they turned it into a storyline. They created the whatever. They wanted to build momentum for this game. And I can't really blame from that, but it is very annoying. But that is even more of a reason why the Chiefs are, in my opinion, very comfortable in this game because, like I said, whenever they're pissed off or whenever they have the motive to win, they perform out of their mind. We saw it during the Ravens game back in week 3 because because heading into that matchup, the Chiefs and the Ravens were the two top dogs in the AFC, and we beat the Ravens out of their own stadium. We destroyed them. So I would be astounded if the Raiders win this game. Let me just say that.
Yeah. I think you hit the nail on the head. Other than a 14-point win being demolished, um,
We demolished them.
I
They scored a touchdown with like 1 minute left.
moving on.
We
I think the
demolished.
only the only sort of key piece that you're missing is Sammy Watkins, and I don't think he'll play much of a factor. Sort of because of all of the weapons that you already have that Mahomes can throw to. And damn, can he throw the ball?
Well, yeah, let me say this. Sammy Watkins actually got hurt during that Week 5 Raiders game and hasn't been back since. And the Chiefs have not lost since that Raiders game. So, yeah,
Yeah,
not concerned about
they've been
that very
fine without
much.
Sammy Watkins. Um, yeah, I
But
mean,
yeah,
I don't think there needs to be much else to talk about other than what we think the score of this game is going to be.
one thing I will say is that, like, obviously the Raiders won that first contest straight up. Props to them. But if the Raiders do win this game tonight, they would have swept the season series, and the Raiders haven't been obviously the best team in the league, but they still are 6-3, and they have as much chances to win the AFC West as we do. To be frank, so even though I'm not really worried about this game means a lot. It means a lot for the division. It means a lot since the Steelers are being very annoying and not losing for who gets that single bye during the playoffs this year, which is definitely an interesting new addition to the playoffs. So this game definitely means something, and that's another reason why I'd be scared if you're a Raiders fan, honestly, because you don't know what's coming. You honestly don't know what's coming.
Yeah, I'm gonna say my final piece, and then I'm gonna give my score, and then you're gonna give my score, and then I think we'll do a sign off. So here's my final piece. In turn, and I understand that you're a Chiefs fan and you're going to get mad and you're going to let me finish anyways. I want to pick the Raiders so bad to win this game. No, before I say, okay, go ahead. Oh, this way? Okay. You're obviously going to get upset at me saying this, and, spoiler alert, you've already heard it. I want to pick the Raiders so bad.
I know you
And,
do.
like,
I know you do.
and not just to piss you off, because I know it's going to piss you off. But the Raiders,
Do it. Come on.
no, okay, maybe I will, and I'll talk about the Raiders for a little bit. The Raiders
I'll let
look
you finish. I'll let you
good.
finish.
The Raiders look good. Um, obviously they've been sort of an under the radar team, but they're 6-3, and they look like a 6-3 team. Sort of the well-oiled machine that John Gruden has put together. They look good, but I know that I talk about Aaron Rodgers doing well the week after a loss. And I'm pretty sure they're still thumping the Colts right now. Yeah. Or no, I'm sorry. The Colts are winning,
It's
but
a
the Packers
it's a
have the
close
ball.
game. Yeah.
Yeah, close game. But Aaron Rodgers is going off, and that's part of my point. Aaron Rodgers plays well the game after he loses, where he's got motive. Okay, I need to bounce back. We talk about Tom Brady going on a tear when he's got a motive. And I feel like we don't talk about Patrick Mahomes coming off of a game where he's got a motive because, and to be quite honest, he's so young and so early in his career that he hasn't had a whole lot of losses yet in his career for him to have
He's
that
never
much
really
of
had
a
a
motive.
motive.
Yeah, for him to have that much of a motive to win the next game. Now he's got a motive, and pissed off Patrick Mahomes is coming for the throats of the Las Vegas Raiders. In terms of a score,
Not something you want to experience.
for this game, which is what the people want, Kansas City is favored by a touchdown, and I don't think it's going to be that much of a runaway, dare I say. I think it's going to be another close bloodbath, and I think the Chiefs come out of it 38-35.
So your prediction, let me get this right. 38-35, Kansas City.
Chiefs by 3.
Okay. I don't want to disrespect the Raiders because like you said, they're 6-3. They have some really good parts of their team. Obviously the running game is great. Josh Jacobs has been really good this season, as well as their offensive line has played really well. And Derek Carr at times has looked pretty good. And I've talked about Derek Carr a few times during these episodes. But let me make this especially clear. The Raiders are not an impressive team. They aren't. They are not an impressive team. Yes, they have beaten some decent teams. They beat the Saints. They've beaten a couple other teams. Doesn't impress me at all. Honestly, it doesn't. I'm not just saying that because I don't like the Raiders, even though I do. Even though I don't like the Raiders, but the Raiders are not. Even though they're 6-3, they haven't impressed me. I know they beat us, so this is gonna sound a little salty, but I'm obviously gonna take the Chiefs. I'm gonna say they win. I'm actually gonna say the same. I'm gonna say 38-27. I'm gonna say they win by 11 tonight. And I think the only reason why I even call this game to be that close, is because the Chiefs, even though the team is very good, they still can't stop the run. They're so bad at stopping the run, and I almost when I watch back at the tape, I almost think it's almost kind of a strategy wise because people don't really think about it, but the Chiefs are actually very good at handling the pass, handling the pass. They're especially good at handling the pass this season. I think they rank actually maybe in the top five in terms of statistics. But the run, they're god awful. They're god awful at stopping the run. And Josh Jacobs in that O line, I think, can do some serious damage to the Chiefs. But it's not going to be enough because Mahomes is, like you said, he's angry. He is an angry son of a gun, and he is going to come for the throats of the Raiders' defense. And I think they actually jump out to an early lead, and then kind of like the Ravens game back in week 3, the Raiders just kind of score some, give me touchdowns, and it doesn't really mean much. So I'm gonna say the Chiefs. They don't like blow them out, but they make a statement here tonight. So 38-27 is my prediction.
Yeah, I think we both hit some good points. Obviously, in the end, we both have Kansas City, so don't get mad at me. But
Yeah, I also would just like to say the Dolphins just lost to the Broncos.
did they?
Let me say that. Let me just say that again. The Dolphins just lost to the Broncos, and if you were a follower of the podcast, which is in the top right corner, also be sure to go follow all the links and the top. I really do appreciate the support as well as Jacob. I had the Dolphins in my top 5 teams in the NFL this week, and they just lost to the Broncos. What just happened, man? Jesus!
Yeah.
How do you score
Um,
13 points?
yeah, the
That's sad.
Chargers nearly lost to the Jets. That's another storyline.
That's the NFL. The NFL this year has been so irregular and
What a
so
wild year.
inconsistent. It's insane. Like the Ravens are 6-4 and third in the division. Like what? And then the Dolphins, who everyone is hyping up, it's like, oh, they got a great defense, and Tua, he's looking good, and then they just go lose to the dancing Drew Lock Broncos. Like, come on.
All right, keep talking
That's a
about that
real
team for a
set.
little bit okay, keep talking about them for a little bit because I want to get a little more information about what I just found.
Okay, cool. If you guys do follow the scoreboard at the bottom, the Colts are actually ahead of the Packers with, I think, 3 minutes left in the fourth quarter. Dallas is also another storyline, Jacob, that is actually a very close game with Minnesota. And like you said, the Chargers and the Jets is also a really close game, but that game is 1 second from being over. So I think the Chargers are pretty much
Yeah,
going
the
to win that
Chargers
game.
won.
Okay.
So the story coming out of Denver, Miami, is at the beginning of the fourth quarter, I should say, while down 20-10, Tua Tagovailoa left the game with an apparent leg injury. So
Oh, okay.
even if they wanted to muster up a little bit of a comeback, they needed to do it with Ryan Fitzpatrick. Which
Hey,
nothing
Ryan
against
Fitzpatrick, man.
Ryan Fitzpatrick, journeyman of the NFL. Um, I don't think they could have done it, even if they wanted to do it with Fitzpatrick.
I would
So
just
that's the
say
storyline.
never discredit Ryan Fitzmagic.
Oh no, I'm not. But I would rather have a fourth quarter comeback with Tua than I would with Ryan.
No, yeah, I completely hear what you're saying. So, yeah, those games are going to be wrapping up very soon, and also, the Sunday night game is about to start in right around an hour. So, very excited about that. I am going to officially wrap up this live stream because I do want to make sure that I'm ready for that Chiefs game. So, for everyone who's watching, thank you so much for tuning in to HQI Sports, the live stream. First NFL live stream. Very exciting stuff. I think it went pretty smoothly. There's definitely going to be some updates, so be sure to look out for that. Very exciting stuff coming, as well as more videos on the HQI Sports YouTube channel. So be sure to go sub to the YouTube channel. Go follow HQI Sports on Twitter. Go follow me on Instagram. And definitely go make sure you follow HQI Sports on Apple Podcasts or any other podcast streaming services. I do upload to all of them, or at least I try to. And that is where the bulk of our content comes from, at least for now, from our podcasts, which are very good. They've gotten a lot better in recent weeks. I'm very excited about that. But for anyone who is watching this live stream, thank you so much for tuning in. Also, thank you, Jacob, for coming on this live stream. I do appreciate it a lot.
Thanks for having
So
me
thank
again,
you.
as always.
Yeah, unfortunately we couldn't talk Giants this week because of the bye, but
It's okay.
shout
I
out.
don't think there would have been much to talk about, anyways.
Well, they won their past 2 games, so maybe, but I don't know. We'll see next week, and we'll be here right back at the same time next week, Sunday at 6 o'clock. I hope you guys have a great. I hope you guys had a great weekend, and I definitely guys wish you guys not a Merry Thanksgiving. What am I saying?
Merry Thanksgiving.
A happy Thanksgiving week in general. But yeah,